But consider the response. Panic. Chaos. Military buildups that might not make Commander Hyun-Soo Lee checked his sensors for the third time in 10 minutes. The readings still didn't make sense. His science officer, Ji-Hai Kim, was running diagnostic after diagnostic, but the results remained consistent. "Commander," Ji-Hai said, her voice tight. "The readings are accurate. There's a massive object at coordinates 773 Mark 8. But that's impossible," Hyun-Soo muttered. "We mapped that region 3 months ago. There was nothing there. Not even dust." They were in the outer rim, one of the dead zones marked on the ancient coalition maps. Hyun-Soo had volunteered to explore these regions after Captain Minho's briefing about the possible Devourer threat. High Command wanted confirmation. They wanted to know if the danger was real. Now Hyun-Soo had his answer, and he wished he didn't. "Range to object?" he asked. 2 million kilometers and closing." "Wait." Ji-Hai's expression changed from confusion to horror. "Commander, it's not an object. It's a ship. How big?" "Planetary scale. Mass approximately equal to Earth's moon." "And, Commander, it's moving toward inhabited space." Hyun-Soo immediately opened a fleet-wide channel. "All stations, battle alert. Helm, stop our approach. Weapons, charge all batteries, but do not target. Comms, prepare an emergency beacon to Earth." The bridge crew moved with trained efficiency, but Hyun-Soo could see fear in their eyes. They all knew what they might be facing. The briefing had made the Devourers sound like a nightmare from ancient history. Now that nightmare was in front of them. "Visual on screen," he ordered. The main display flickered and showed the object. Hyun-Soo's breath caught. It didn't look like any ship he'd ever seen. The surface was a mix of metallic structures and something organic. It pulsed with a rhythm that reminded him sickeningly of a heartbeat. The shape constantly shifted, like it couldn't decide what form to take. "Commander, I'm detecting smaller craft detaching from the main vessel," Ji-Hai reported. "Hundreds of them. They're forming a swarm pattern and heading toward the Kelrax colony system." Hyun-Soo made a decision. "Send the emergency beacon. Maximum priority." Message reads, "Contact confirmed. Unknown hostile matching ancient coalition database signatures. Immediate support required." The beacon launched, jumping to faster-than-light travel to reach Earth. The journey would take hours. Hours they might not have. "Follow the small craft," Hyun-Soo ordered. "Maintain distance. I want to see what they do." The smaller vessels were still enormous by normal standards. Each one was the size of a cruiser. They moved with disturbing grace like a school of fish swimming through water. As they approached the colony system, they began to spread out, surrounding the inhabited worlds. "The colony is hailing us," the communications officer reported. "They detect the incoming vessels and are requesting assistance." "Tell them to evacuate immediately," Hyun-Soo said. "Full priority evacuation. Leave everything behind and run." But it was already too late. The Devourer craft reached the first planet, an agricultural world with 3 million inhabitants. They didn't fire weapons. They simply descended into the atmosphere and landed across the surface. Then the planet began to change. At first it looked like the surface was rippling. Then Hyun-Soo realized with horror that the land itself was being disassembled. Buildings, forests, oceans, everything was breaking down into component molecules. The process spread from the landing sites like waves, converting solid matter into flowing streams of energy. "What are we seeing?" someone whispered. "They're eating it," Ji-Hai said, her voice hollow. "The planet. They're consuming the entire planet." Within 3 hours, the world was gone, not destroyed. Consumed. Converted into raw material that flowed back to the Devourer ships. The smaller craft grew larger, fed by the planet's mass. And in orbit, more vessels were already approaching the next inhabited world. "Send another beacon," Hyun-Soo ordered. "Mark this location. Tell them we witnessed a Devourer attack. Tell them it's real." On Earth, the emergency beacon arrived while Fleet Admiral Tae-hyun was in a strategy meeting. The message interrupted everything. Within minutes, the entire military command was assembled. "They're back," Tae-hyun said simply. He displayed the sensor readings from Hyun-Soo's ship. "This is what we've been preparing for." Captain Minho studied the data. The massive ship, the swarming smaller craft, the consumption of an entire world. It matched the ancient records perfectly. "How long until they reach Council space?" someone asked. "At current speed? 6 months to the nearest major system. 2 years to Earth." Tae-hyun pulled up long-range scans. "But there are more of them." Long-range probes are detecting similar signatures in 3 other sectors. This isn't a single ship. It's a coordinated advance. We need to warn the Council, Yewan said. Already done, Tae-hyun confirmed. I've sent messages to all 3 empires. Whether they believe us is another question. They didn't have to wait long for an answer. Within hours, the Vrithan, Kelrax, and Thum leadership all responded. They were skeptical. Some accused humanity of fabricating the threat to justify keeping the ancient fleet. But as more reports came in, skepticism turned to concern, then to fear. Colonies on the outer rim were going silent. Rescue ships arrived to find worlds stripped bare. The pattern matched human warnings exactly. The galactic community faced a choice: unite or die alone. The first joint meeting between humanity and the Council empires took place 1 week after Hyunsu's discovery. This time the tone was different. Thalos still looked at the humans with suspicion, but fear had replaced contempt. We have confirmed 6 separate Devourer fleets, Tae-hyun reported. Each one is advancing toward populated space. At least 30 inhabited worlds have already been consumed. Casualty estimates are in the billions. What do you propose? Thalos asked stiffly. Combined defense, Tae-hyun said. Pool our resources. Share intelligence. The ancient humans built weapons specifically to fight these things. But even with those weapons, we'll need numbers. Ships, crews, coordination. You're asking us to trust you, a Kelrax commander said. After you threatened us with those same ancient weapons. I'm asking you to survive, Tae-hyun shot back. The Devourers don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They consume everything and move on. Your empires, our worlds, every species in the galaxy, we're all on the menu. For once, the Council didn't have a quick response. The reality of the threat was sinking in. Show us these weapons, Thalos finally said. Prove they work against these Devourers. Tae-hyun nodded. We're organizing a strike against one of their advanced fleets. A test of capabilities. You're welcome to observe. The strike force assembled at the edge of human space. 10 ancient human ships led by the Eternal Horizon. Alongside them, representatives from the 3 Council empires brought their finest vessels. The comparison was stark. The ancient ships dwarfed everything else. Captain Su-jin coordinated weapon systems while Navigator Jin-woo plotted an intercept course. They were targeting a small Devourer fleet, only 12 vessels. Still enough to consume multiple worlds. All ships report ready, Su-jin announced. Begin the attack, Tae-hyun ordered. The ancient fleet moved forward. The Council ships hung back, watching. As they approached, the Devourer vessels detected them and shifted formation. The organic metallic hulls rippled, weapons ports opening like wounds. They're adapting already, Su-jin warned. Scanning our approach pattern and adjusting defenses. That's what they do, Tae-hyun acknowledged. But our weapons were designed for this. Fire when ready. The Eternal Horizon opened fire first. The quantum disassociation beams lanced out, hitting the nearest Devourer vessel. But this time the effect was different. The ship didn't simply vanish. Its hull resisted, shimmering as the weapon fought against alien defenses. They've adapted since the old war, Su-jin realized. The weapons are less effective. Then we adapt too, Tae-hyun said. Switch to pattern Delta 7. Rotate frequencies. The human fleet changed tactics. Instead of single powerful shots, they fired rapidly, cycling through different weapon configurations. The Devourers tried to adapt, but the constant changes kept them off balance. One by one, the Devourer ships broke apart. But not easily. Each kill took multiple shots, coordinated strikes from several ships. By the time the battle ended, the human fleet had destroyed all 12 targets. But they had expended enormous amounts of energy doing it. Analysis, Tae-hyun ordered. They're definitely more advanced than the old records, Su-jin reported. Stronger shields, better adaptation, faster learning. If they keep evolving at this rate, our weapons might become useless within a year. Thalos, watching from his observation ship, opened a channel. You won, barely, against a small fleet. The reports say thousands of these vessels are coming. How do you propose to stop them all? The same way the Coalition did, Tae-hyun said. Unity. Every ship, every species working together, and hope that we can buy enough time to find their weakness. Do they have a weakness? They must, Tae-hyun replied, though he sounded less certain than he wanted to. The Coalition beat them before somehow. We just need to figure out how. Over the following weeks, an unprecedented alliance formed. Human engineers shared ancient coalition technology. Council scientists contributed their own research. Military forces for 6 months after the confrontation, Earth had become the center of galactic attention. The ancient fleet's revelation sent shockwaves through every civilization. Scientists wanted to study the ships. Historians wanted answers about the coalition. Military strategists wanted to understand the technology. And everyone wanted to know what happened to the ancient humans. Historian Una Song had never been busier in her life. She led a team of specialists working to decode the ancient ship databases. Every day brought new discoveries and new questions. "We've recovered another data fragment," her assistant Kyung-soo said, bringing up a hologram. "This one talks about the coalition species." Una studied the information. 12 species united against a common threat. The names were unfamiliar, their forms alien, but the record showed they had built something remarkable together. Not an empire, but a true coalition where each species contributed their strengths. What happened to them? Kyung-soo wondered. "The war killed them," Una said softly. "All 11 non-human species went extinct, some in battle, others when their homeworlds were consumed. The records say humanity survived only because we had colonies in isolated regions the devourers never reached." She pulled up another file. This one showed battle reports from the final years of the war. The language was fragmentary, corrupted by time. But certain words appeared again and again: adaptation, evolution, learning. The devourers weren't just an enemy, Una realized. They were a plague. A force that studied and countered everything the coalition used against them. Weapons stopped working. Tactics became useless. It took thousands of years, but the devourers learned to beat almost everything. "Almost?" Kyung-soo asked. "The coalition won eventually," Una pointed out. "Somehow they found a way. But it cost them everything." Meanwhile, in Earth's government chambers, Ambassador Haiwan faced a different challenge. The revelation of the ancient fleet had split humanity's leadership. Some saw it as humanity's chance to become a dominant power. Others worried about the unknown dangers it represented. Council Representative Min Ji-seo was the loudest voice of caution. She stood before the assembled leaders, her expression grave. "We're playing with forces we don't understand," Min Ji argued. "These ships say our war never ended. What does that mean? Are we preparing for a threat that's already gone? Or is there something out there still waiting? The Council empires have ruled for 50,000 years without encountering these devourers," another representative pointed out. "Maybe they're extinct. Maybe the threat is over. Maybe," Minji agreed, "but maybe not. And if we're wrong, we've just announced our presence to something that destroyed 11 civilizations." Haiwan understood both sides. The ancient fleet gave humanity security and respect, but it also tied them to a history they barely understood. "We can't put the fleet back to sleep," she said. "The Council knows about it. Other species know. We can't unreveal this." "Then we need to understand it better," Minji insisted. "Before we make any more grand gestures, we need to know what we're dealing with." The debate continued for hours, as it had for weeks. Earth's government was paralyzed between ambition and caution. On the flagship Eternal Horizon, Captain Minho was discovering something disturbing. He spent his free time exploring the ancient ship, learning its systems. The vessel was like a city floating in space, with sections they were still mapping. Today he was in the command center, studying the navigation systems. The ship's AI had been helpful, teaching him the controls. Almost too helpful. It anticipated his questions. It knew what he needed before he asked. "AI," Minho said. "How do you know my name?" "I never entered it into your system." The holographic interface shimmered. "Your genetic profile identifies you as a descendant of the line. Command authorization is inherited." "What line?" "The command line. The families who led the coalition fleet. Your DNA carries markers that grant access to command functions." Minho felt a chill. "How many other people have these markers?" "Currently on Earth? Approximately 2 million individuals carry command-level genetic markers. Another 15 million carry crew-level markers. The coalition ensured genetic diversity before the collapse. So our ancestors planned this," Minho said slowly. "They knew their civilization would fall. They encoded command access into bloodlines that would survive." "Correct. The inheritors were meant to find these vessels eventually." Minho pulled up the ship's star charts. Something had been bothering him for weeks. The map showed vast territories marked in red. "Dead zones. AI, what are these regions?" Systems lost in the war, the AI replied. Territories consumed by the Devourers. Lost how? Conquered? Consumed, erased. The Devourers did not occupy worlds. They disassembled them at a molecular level and converted the matter to energy. When they finished with a system, nothing remained. Not planets, not asteroids, not even dust. Minho stared at the dead zones. Hundreds of star systems simply gone. How is that possible? The Devourers operated on principles the Coalition never fully understood. They treated matter as raw material. They could break down anything and rebuild it into their own structures. Planets became ships, stars became power sources, life became fuel. And you're certain they're gone? The AI paused. For the first time since Minho had been talking with it, the response wasn't immediate. Certain? No probable? Also no. Explain. The final battle occurred in what your charts call the Outer Rim. The Coalition assembled every remaining ship. 3,000 vessels, including the ones you now control. The battle lasted 14 days. When it ended, the Devourer's central fleet was destroyed. Their coordination network collapsed. The surviving forces scattered, so they could still be out there, Minho said. The records indicate that Devourer remnants fled into deep space, beyond explored regions. The Coalition was too damaged to pursue. The decision was made to fortify, to rebuild, to prepare for their return. But the Coalition fell before they could finish. Yes. The cost of victory was total societal collapse. The war economy could not sustain itself. Infrastructure failed. Colonies were abandoned. Within 1,000 years, only Earth retained a human population, and they had reverted to pre-spaceflight technology. Minho studied the star charts more carefully. The dead zones formed a pattern, a line of consumed systems stretching from the galactic core toward the outer rim, and beyond that line, at the very edge of explored space, was empty space, not dead zones, just areas that had never been mapped. AI, did the Coalition explore these regions before the war? No, those areas were designated as restricted zones. Initial probes detected anomalous readings, strange energy signatures. Before full surveys could be conducted, the war began. What kind of anomalies? Spatial distortions, quantum irregularities, readings consistent with massive engineering projects of unknown origin. Minho felt his pulse quicken. Projects built by whom? Unknown. The Coalition theorized the Devourers originated from that region, but the theory was never confirmed. He pulled up a specific section of the map, one area marked with a symbol he didn't recognize. What's this? That is the last site, the AI said quietly. The location where the final battle occurred. The place where the Coalition fleet made its stand. Is there anything there now? Unknown. No probes have been sent to that region since the battle. It lies 3 months' travel from Earth at maximum speed. Minho stared at the symbol. Something about it bothered him. It looked too deliberate, too carefully marked. Like a warning, AI, he said slowly. Are these ships just weapons? Or are they something more? They are guardians, the AI replied. Weapons, yes, but also watchers. The Coalition placed them throughout human space to serve as an early warning system. If the Devourers returned, these ships would detect them first. And have they? Detected anything? Nothing confirmed. But there have been irregularities, small distortions in deep space, ships disappearing in the outer territories. Nothing conclusive, but consistent with Devourer scout activity. Minho's blood ran cold. When? When did this start? Approximately 60 years ago. The incidents are rare. Once every few years, easy to dismiss as accidents or navigational errors, but the pattern matches Coalition records of Devourer reconnaissance behavior. Why didn't you tell anyone? I am telling you now, because you ask the right questions, because your species is ready to hear the answer, and because the frequency of incidents is increasing. Minho brought up the incident reports. The AI was right. Ships lost in deep space, probes that stopped transmitting, colonies that went silent and were found abandoned when rescue arrived, all of them on the edges of known space, all of them in regions near the old dead zones. Show me the pattern, he ordered. The hologram shifted. The incidents appeared as red dots on the star map. At first they seemed random, but as the AI added timestamps, a pattern emerged. The incidents were moving, slowly over decades, moving inward from the outer rim, moving toward Earth. How long? Minho asked quietly. How long until they reach populated space? If the pattern continues at its current rate, 10 to 15 years. But the pattern is accelerating. New incidents are occurring more frequently. If the acceleration continues, first contact could happen in as little as 5 years. Minho sat down heavily. We need to tell Earth, we need to warn the Council. Agreed. The 48 hours passed like a countdown to doomsday. Earth's orbital space filled with activity, as civilian ships evacuated to safe distances. Military vessels took defensive positions, and in the shadows, hidden from sensors, the ancient fleet waited. Minho stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, watching the Council's enforcement fleet arrive. 200 dreadnoughts dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Each one bristled with weapons. Each one could destroy a city with a single shot. They're not subtle, his communications officer muttered. They don't need to be, Minho replied. The Council had spent 50,000 years ruling through overwhelming force. Subtlety was for species who couldn't afford to be direct. The massive form of Thalos appeared on the main screen. Behind him, representatives from the Kelrax and Thum empires watched with predatory interest. Humans, Thalos said. His voice dripped with false courtesy. Your time has expired. What is your answer? Minho took a breath. In his ear, he heard Tae-hyun whisper, Now, High Commander, Minho said clearly. Before we answer, we'd like to share something with you. A piece of history. You're very proud of your empire's age. 50,000 years among the stars. That's impressive. Most species don't last that long. Thalos frowned, uncertain where this was going. Get to the point, human. The point is this, Minho continued. You think we're young, inexperienced, easy to bully because we've only been in space for 300 years. He smiled. You're wrong about that. We've been out here much longer. What nonsense is this? Thalos demanded. No nonsense, Minho said. Just a truth we've been keeping quiet. You see, 300 years ago, we didn't discover space travel. We rediscovered it. Thalos opened his mouth to respond, but his sensor officer interrupted him with a panicked shout. On the Council ships, alarms began blaring. Their scanners had detected something. The ancient fleet decloaked. From behind the moon, from Jupiter's shadow, from hidden positions throughout the solar system, 47 massive vessels appeared. Each one made the largest Council dreadnought look like a child's toy. Their hulls gleamed with active shielding technology that made the air shimmer. Weapons ports glowed with barely contained energy. The Council bridge fell silent. Minho watched their faces shift from confusion to shock to fear. What? Thalos stammered. What are those? Those are ours, Minho said quietly. They've been ours for a very long time. Fleet Admiral Tae-hyun's voice came over the open channel, broadcasting to every ship in the system. He stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Horizon, flanked by Captain Su Jin Kwan and Navigator Jin Woo Park. Behind him, holographic displays showed the ancient fleet in all its terrible glory. Council Fleet, Tae-hyun said. His voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. I am Fleet Admiral Tae-hyun Lee of the Earth Defense Force. Those ships you're looking at were built by humans 85,000 years ago. They were flying between stars when your ancestors were still developing agriculture. They've been sleeping. We woke them up, Thalos found his voice. Impossible. This is some trick. Some deception. No trick, Tae-hyun replied. Just a reality you weren't ready for. You came here to intimidate us, to force us to submit. But we don't submit. Not anymore. Not ever again. On the Council flagship, frantic reports came in from sensor officers. The ancient ship's power readings were off the scale. Their weapons showed energy signatures that didn't match any known technology. Their shields operated on principles that current galactic science couldn't explain. This changes nothing, Thalos roared, though his voice held uncertainty. You still face the might of 3 empires, 47 ships against thousands. True, Tae-hyun acknowledged. But the question isn't about numbers. It's about capability. Your empires have impressive fleets, lots of ships, lots of firepower. But quantity has its limits, he nodded to Captain Su Jin. She entered a command on her console. Let me show you what I mean, Tae-hyun continued. The ship I'm standing on? It's called the Eternal Horizon. It was built by humans before your civilization existed. And compared to modern galactic technology, it's not just advanced. It's from a different universe of possibility. The Eternal Horizon's forward weapons array came online. The glow intensified until it looked like a captured star. This is a warning shot. Tae-hyun said. Consider it a demonstration of the technological gap between us. You wouldn't dare. Thalos shouted. Fire on this fleet and you declare war on the entire council. Oh, we're not firing on your fleet, Tae-hyun replied. We're firing through it. The eternal horizon released a single beam of coherent energy. It crossed the distance to the council fleet in an instant. Thalos watched in horror as the beam passed through the shields of 3 dreadnoughts like they weren't even there. The shields didn't flare. They didn't overload. They simply failed to exist in the path of the weapon. The 3 dreadnoughts didn't explode. They didn't burn. They simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, solid and real. The next moment there was nothing. Not even debris, just empty space where thousands of crew members had been. The council fleet erupted in chaos. Ships scattered, trying to get distance. Alarms screamed. Commanders shouted contradictory orders. The perfect formation dissolved into panicked flight. That was one shot, Tae-hyun said into the silence that followed. From one weapon. On one ship. We have 47 ships. Each one has hundreds of weapons. And every single weapon is designed to make your shields and armor irrelevant. Thalos stared at the empty space where his ships had been. His silver skin had turned pale. What did you do? Quantum disassociation, Soo-jin reported calmly. The weapon doesn't destroy matter. It breaks the quantum bonds that let matter exist in this dimensional state. It's not an explosion. It's an erasure. Leave, Tae-hyun ordered. Take your fleet and leave Earth space. Return to the council. Tell them humanity is no longer accepting ultimatums. Tell them we're offering one instead. You can't, Thalos began. We propose a new relationship, Tae-hyun continued as if Thalos hadn't spoken. One based on mutual respect instead of submission. We're willing to share our space, our resources, our knowledge, but we will not be conquered. We will not be enslaved, and we will not bow to threats. He leaned forward, his eyes hard. Go home, Thalos. Tell your council what you saw here. Tell them the galaxy has changed. The old empires are still powerful, still important, but they're not alone at the top anymore. For a long moment, Thalos said nothing. His multiple eyes stared at the ancient human ships, still glowing with barely restrained power. Finally, he spoke, his voice hollow. The council will respond to this aggression. Let them respond with diplomacy, Tae-hyun suggested. War would be unfortunate for everyone. The council fleet began withdrawing. Ships limped away from Earth, their perfect formation broken. As they reached the edge of the system, they jumped to faster-than-light travel and disappeared. On the eternal horizon, the crew erupted in cheers. Minho felt relief wash over him. They had done it. They had stood up to the council and won, but Tae-hyun wasn't celebrating. He stared at the tactical display, his expression troubled. Admiral? Soo-jin asked. We won. This battle, Tae-hyun agreed. But we just declared ourselves the equals of empires that have ruled for 50,000 years. They're not going to accept that easily. Some will want revenge. Others will want to understand how we got these ships. He looked at his officers. The galaxy just learned that human history is far older and stranger than anyone thought. And every species out there is going to have questions. Jin-woo looked at the ancient ship's displays. Do we have answers? Some, Tae-hyun said quietly. But not enough. These ships tell a story of a great war, a coalition that fell and an enemy that might still exist. We've bought ourselves freedom. Now we need to figure out what our ancestors were so worried about. The ancient fleet began moving into patrol positions around Earth. 47 vessels, older than civilizations, standing guard over a world that had forgotten it once ruled the stars. In the command center deep below Earth's surface, Yoonji watched the ships through her instruments. The AI systems were fully active now, ancient minds awakening after 85,000 years of sleep, and deep in the ship computers something stirred. Fragments of memories from the old war, warnings about an enemy that learned, that adapted, that waited. The devourers had been defeated. But the ancient message was clear. They were broken, not destroyed. And somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, perhaps they were remembering too. Scientist Yoonji Choi had been working on Project Deep Time for 15 years. She still remembered her first day in the Luna Base archive, when her supervisor showed her what they had found. She had thought it was a joke. Then she saw the evidence. Now she stood before the military leadership, preparing to give the briefing that would change everything. Behind her, Holographic displays showed the discovery that humanity had kept secret for 2 centuries. In 2647, she began. A mining expedition in the Kuiper Belt found something unusual. At first they thought it was just another asteroid cluster, but the density readings were wrong. The composition was wrong. When they got closer, they realized what they were looking at. The hologram shifted to show a massive shape floating in space. Even in the poor quality of the original footage, its nature was clear. It was a ship, a warship larger than any human settlement. They found 12 vessels in that first field, Yunji continued, all damaged, all ancient, and all completely unmistakably human. Admiral Tae-hyun, who had seen this presentation before, watched the faces of the newer staff members. Their expressions shifted from confusion to disbelief to wonder. Human? Someone asked. How is that possible? Yunji brought up the next display. We asked the same question. We ran every test we could think of. Carbon dating, radiometric decay, quantum resonance dating, multiple independent laboratories, blind studies, peer review from people who didn't know what they were testing. She paused. Every test gave us the same answer. The ships are 85,000 years old. The room erupted in whispers. Yunji waited for them to quiet down. According to every archaeological record we have, she continued, humans 85,000 years ago were hunter-gatherers. We had barely left Africa. We were using stone tools. We definitely weren't building moon-sized warships and flying between the stars. She brought up images of the hull plates. Symbols and letters covered them. This is the part that convinced me this wasn't a mistake. This writing isn't some ancient human language we've lost. It's modern Standard English, Korean, Mandarin, Arabic, and a dozen other contemporary languages, mixed together on the same panels like they were written yesterday. More images appeared. DNA samples preserved in the ship's medical facilities. The genetic profiles match modern humans. Not close, not similar. Exact matches. These ships were built by people who would fit perfectly into any city on Earth today. Engineer Dong-wook Han stepped forward to take over the briefing. Where Yunji dealt with the mystery, Dong-wook dealt with the reality. He had spent 20 years restoring these ancient vessels. Once we got over the shock, he said, we had to figure out what to do with them. Study them? Sure. But as we dug deeper, we realized these weren't museum pieces. They were weapons. Active weapons, just sleeping. The hologram changed to show a cross-section of one ship. The technology is beyond anything the current galaxy has. We still don't fully understand how half of it works. The reactors generate energy from quantum foam. The weapons don't just destroy matter. They manipulate probability fields. The shields operate in dimensions we can barely detect. He pulled up comparison charts. A single one of these ships has more firepower than Earth's entire current fleet. It's faster, tougher, and smarter. And we found 47 of them intact enough to restore. Where? Someone asked. Where did you find them all? Everywhere, Dong-wook said. Mars has 3 buried in Valles Marineris. Europa has 1 frozen in the ice. Earth's oceans hide at least 10. More in the asteroid belt, the Oort cloud, and the Kuiper belt. Whoever put them there spread them out deliberately, like they wanted to make sure we would find them eventually. Yunji returned to the display. We recovered data from the ship's computers. Most of it is corrupted or encrypted beyond our ability to break. But we got fragments, pieces of the story. The hologram showed a star map. Vast sections were marked in red. 85,000 years ago, humanity was part of something called the Coalition. 12 species working together. They controlled thousands of star systems, and they were fighting a war. Against who? Jiwoo asked, though she already knew the answer. The databases call them the Devourers, Yunji said. We don't know what they were exactly. The descriptions are fragmentary. But we know what they did. They consumed worlds. Completely. They would strip a solar system of everything, matter and energy, leaving nothing but empty space. She showed images recovered from the database. They were grainy and corrupted, but the horror came through clearly. Planets torn apart, stars going dark, fleets of strange ships that looked more organic than mechanical. The Coalition fought them for thousands of years, Yunji continued. Eventually they won, but the cost was catastrophic. 11 of the 12 Coalition species went extinct. Only humanity survived, and just barely. What happened to us? Tae-hyun asked quietly. Total civilization collapse, Yunji said. The war destroyed most of humanity's infrastructure. The survivors scattered across the galaxy, but most colonies failed. Only one population survived long-term: Earth. We reverted to a pre-technological state. Over thousands of years, we forgot everything. The Great War, the Coalition, our time among the stars. All of it became myth, then forgotten entirely. Dongwook brought up images of the ship interiors. Command centers designed for human proportions. Quarters with earth plants preserved in stasis. Libraries filled with human art and culture. Whoever abandoned these ships didn't want us to forget forever. They left them as time capsules. As a message to future generations. What message? Someone asked. Yunji pulled up the last recovered file. Text in multiple languages filled the screen. She read it aloud. They will come again. The war was won but not finished. The devourers were broken but not destroyed. They will adapt. They will return. The inheritors must be ready. Our civilization is dying, but humanity will survive. These ships are our legacy. Our warning, our gift. When you find them, remember our war never ended. We merely slept. Silence filled the room. The implications crashed down on everyone present. So this is why we kept it secret, Jiwoo said. Not just because of the technology, because of what it means. Yes, Yunji confirmed. If we reveal these ships, we're not just showing military power. We're revealing that human history is completely wrong. That we've been in space before. That we fought and barely survived a war against something that destroyed 11 advanced civilizations. She looked at each face in turn. And we're revealing that the enemy might still be out there somewhere. Taehyun stood. For 200 years, we've debated what to do with this knowledge. Hide it forever? Reveal it gradually. Wait until we fully understand the technology. He gestured at the countdown on the wall. The council just made our decision for us. In 40 hours, we either surrender or fight. If we fight, we need these ships. But if we use them, Heewon said, we open questions we might not want answered. Maybe, Taehyun agreed. But I'd rather face unknown questions than certain slavery. He looked at Dongwook. How fast can you mobilize the fleet? They're already moving, Dongwook said with a slight smile. Started the warm-up sequence when you called this meeting. In 30 hours, all 47 ships will be in position around Earth. Hidden but ready. Good. Taehyun turned to Minho. Captain, you'll command the diplomatic response. When the council comes with their enforcement fleet, you'll be our voice. What do I tell them? Minho asked. Taehyun smiled coldly. The truth. That they're very proud of their 50,000-year-old empires. That we understand. That we respect age and experience. His smile widened. And then you tell them that we've been out here longer. Much, much longer. The council chamber was massive. It stretched so high that Minho Kang could barely see the ceiling. Floating platforms held representatives from dozens of alien species, all watching the humans below. Minho stood next to Ambassador Haiwan Park, trying not to show his nervousness. The Vrithan High Commander Thalos towered over them. His skin looked like flowing silver, and his 6 eyes gleamed with barely hidden contempt. Behind him, the representatives of the Kelrax hierarchy and Thum collective waited in silence. These 3 empires ruled the galaxy. Everyone knew it. Everyone feared them. Humans. Thalos began, his voice booming across the chamber. You have been in space for 300 years. A blink of an eye, a joke compared to our 50,000 years among the stars. Minho felt Heewon tense beside him, but she kept her face calm. They had expected this speech. Your expansion has been noticed, Thalos continued. You spread too fast. You take too much. The council has decided that your species needs guidance, protection. He smiled, showing teeth that looked like shards of glass. We are generous. We offer you safety. What are the terms? Haiwan asked. Her voice was steady. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth's colonies, glowing dots scattered across several star systems. 40% of them turned red as they watched. You will surrender these colonies to council administration, Thalos said. You will accept our military oversight. You will pay tribute in resources and technology. In return, we will not destroy you. Minho felt anger rise in his chest, but he forced it down. Around the chamber, other species watched with pity or amusement. This was how things worked in the galaxy. The old empires decided. The young species obeyed or died. We need time to discuss this with Earth, Haiwan said carefully. Thalos laughed. The sound echoed like breaking metal. Of course. You have 48 hours. Refuse. and you will learn what happens to species who think they are special, who think they are different. He leaned forward, his massive form blocking out the light. You are not special, humans. You are simply next. The platform descended, taking them away from the council floor. Minho waited until they were alone in the transport before speaking. They're not even pretending anymore, he said quietly. No. Hewan agreed. They see us as easy prey. She looked at him with tired eyes. Is Earth ready? I'll find out. The journey back to Earth took 6 hours through the transit gate network. Minho spent most of it staring out at the stars, thinking about the choice they faced. Surrender or fight, submit or die. But there was a third option, one that terrified him more than either alternative. They landed at a facility that didn't exist on any public map. Deep underground, protected by layers of security that would make a paranoid dictator jealous. Fleet Admiral Tae-hyun Lee was waiting for them in the command center, along with Chief of Defense Ji-woo Nam. Let me guess, Tae-hyun said. They want everything and offer nothing. 40% of our colonies, Minho reported. Military occupation. Regular tribute. The usual. And if we refuse? War, one we can't win. Minho sat down heavily. Their enforcement fleet alone has 200 dreadnoughts. That's just what they're sending to intimidate us. Their full military is thousands of times larger. Silence filled the room. Everyone knew the numbers. Earth's fleet had maybe 50 capital ships, another 100 cruisers, and a few thousand smaller vessels. It sounded impressive until you realized the Vrithan Dominion alone had more than 10,000 dreadnoughts. So we have a decision to make, Ji-woo said. She looked at each of them in turn. Do we bow, or do we show them? Tae-hyun walked to a wall panel and pressed his palm against it. A hidden door slid open, revealing another room beyond. Screens covered every wall, showing data streams and star charts. At the center was a hologram that made Minho's breath catch. It showed a ship. No, it showed dozens of ships. Each one was huge, dwarfing anything in Earth's current fleet. The design was strange but somehow familiar. Sleek lines and aggressive angles. Weapons ports dotting the hull like stars. We've kept the secret for 200 years, Tae-hyun said softly. Every year I hoped we wouldn't need them, that we could build our own future without digging up the past. He turned to face them. But that time is over. If we don't use them now, we'll never get another chance. Hewan stepped closer to the hologram. Are they ready? 47 vessels fully operational, Ji-woo reported. Crews trained. Systems tested as much as we dare without being detected. The question isn't capability, it's whether we're ready for what comes after. After? Minho asked. After we reveal that humanity has been in space before, Tae-hyun said. After we show the galaxy that their precious old empires are children compared to what we found. After we prove that Earth isn't some backwater that just discovered faster-than-light travel 300 years ago. He brought up another image. This one showed a debris field stretching across millions of kilometers. Shattered hulls and dead reactors floating in the dark, and in the center, intact and waiting, were the ships from the hologram. We found these 85,000 years ago, Tae-hyun continued. In the Kuiper Belt, buried on Mars, hidden beneath Earth's oceans. Dozens of warships, all bearing human design, human language, human DNA. Our ancestors flew these ships when the Vrithan were still developing agriculture. Minho stared at the images. He had heard rumors, whispers of a secret project. But seeing it was different. Why did they disappear? What happened to them? We don't know the full story, Ji-woo admitted. The ship computers are damaged. But we know they fought a war. We know they won, barely. And we know they left these ships as a warning, a weapon for their descendants. For us, Hewan said. For us, Tae-hyun agreed. He looked at the countdown on the wall. 46 hours and 18 minutes remaining. So we decide now. Do we surrender our freedom? Do we fight with what we have and lose? Or do we wake up the fleet our ancestors left behind and show the galaxy that humanity never truly left? Minho thought about Thalos and his contempt. He thought about the smaller species he had seen in the council chamber, crushed under the weight of the old empires. He thought about his children, growing up on a colony world that would be taken away in 2 days. We show them, he said. Hewan nodded. Agreed, Ji-woo smiled grimly. Then we have work to do. The fleet needs to move into position. We need to coordinate with our colonies, and someone needs to write a very special speech. What kind of speech? Minho asked. Taehyun's expression was hard, the kind that tells the galaxy their understanding of history is about to change. The kind that tells three empires they're not as old or powerful as they think. He turned back to the hologram of the ancient ships, the kind that starts a revolution. The countdown continued. 46 hours until Earth answered the Council's ultimatum. 46 hours until humanity revealed what it had been hiding in the dark.